I'm 32 years old, and my name is Anna. Trapped in a failing marriage that has been going on longer than I would like to admit. Michael, my spouse, is the first person I would like to tell you about in my life. When we initially met, Michael was really charming. He made everyone feel special and had this effortless smile. However, that was prior to him revealing his true nature and before his parents, Evelyn and George, turned into a persistent presence in our life. George and Evelyn, where should I begin? They are the type of people that believe they have a duty to the world. They are Michael's parents, and I have disliked them from the beginning. Michael and I are on the verge of divorcing because of them. Our tale begins on a regular evening in our home. After a demanding workday, I was in the kitchen attempting to prepare supper for Michael, who had just arrived home from his job. Michael's tone was stern, one that was all too familiar. "Anna, why isn't dinner ready yet?" "I just got home, Michael." "It's been a crazy day at work," I said, feeling exhausted from the previous day. "You know my parents are coming over, they expect a proper meal," he added, rolling his eyes. "Excuses." Evelyn and George answered, "Ah, yes, the royal visit, treating our house like their own restaurant." They would come over and berate me for my food and talk non-stop about how much we ought to be doing for them. It was draining. The doorbell rang then, almost like clockwork. Michael hastily pulled open the door to reveal his parents, who walked in with the air of landlords. Evelyn replied, not even bothering to say hello, "Anna, dear, I hope you're making something good tonight." "We're so tired of the same old dishes," George said. "Yeah, and make sure there's enough. You always cook so little." I tried not to lose my calm and tighten my jaw. "I'm making spaghetti bolognese. It'll be ready in a bit." Evelyn scowled. "Spaghetti again? Well, I guess you'll have to make do." Everything went according to plan that evening. Evelyn and George were always complaining about something or other, the cuisine, the newest rumors in the neighborhood, or the fact that we weren't living up to their standards. Michael never once defended me, never did more than nod in agreement. As I was clearing away from supper, Michael came over to me in the kitchen. "You could try being nicer to my parents, Anna. They're just old and set in their ways," he replied. My patience becoming thin, I slammed a plate into the dishwasher. "Nicer, Michael? They treat me like a maid, and you just let them. When are you going to realize that your parents are manipulating us?" His expression hardened. "They're my parents, Anna. They come first." "Maybe you shouldn't be here," he shot back. His allegiances were obvious, and they weren't with me. I realized something needed to change as I laid in bed that night and looked up at the ceiling. I could not continue to live this way, married to a guy who prioritized his parents over our union, in a house where I felt alienated. And that's only where my narrative starts. A tale of how my in-laws used me like a tool and denigrated me, and how I ended up stuck in a marriage that was nothing like I had anticipated, with a spouse who had turned into a stranger. Dealing with Michael's parents, Evelyn and George, was far more difficult than I had imagined in my marriage to him. They were masters at playing on my emotions, and they had a way of making everything about them. Allow me to describe a normal Sunday afternoon. As Evelyn liked to call Sundays, we were all family, so Michael and I had no control over how we chose to spend our day. As usual, they showed up without warning on this particular Sunday. When I opened the door, Evelyn was standing there, looking at me with that same disapproving expression. "Anna, let's talk about your garden. It's getting ugly," she said as she pushed by me and into the home. "I've been busy, Evelyn. The garden is not our top priority right now," I responded. In her wake, George moaned, "Busy doing what? You don't even have kids to take care of." Michael entered from the living room beaming before I could reply. "Mom, Dad, glad you could make it." Anna was just about to start lunch. I glanced at Michael, but he averted my eyes. Normal. While I was occupied in the kitchen, Evelyn and George began their customary ritual. They grumbled about their neighbors, the expense of living, and the lack of regard for the past. After lunch was served, more grievances surfaced. Evelyn to George, "This chicken is dry, Anna." Can't you do anything right? George said to Evelyn, and these vegetables are overcooked. You'd think someone who works from home could manage a decent meal. Trying not to lose my temper, I balled my fists beneath the table. Michael pretended not to hear and continued eating. Lunch was followed by the real fun. Evelyn made her demands first. Anna, we need you to drive us to the doctor tomorrow. We can't rely on public transport at our age. It surprised me. But I have work meetings all day tomorrow. Can't you take a cab? Why should we spend money on a cab when we have you? Scoffed George. When I looked to Michael for encouragement, he simply shrugged. You know how they are, Anna. Just do it for peace. My temper was getting the better of me. Do it for peace? When do my needs get considered in this family? More of the same for the remainder of the day. George wanted guidance on his garden, Evelyn needed assistance with her phone, and I was supposed to attend to all of their needs. When they eventually departed that evening, I went up to Michael. Why do you let them walk all over us? Why can't you stand up to them? I said to him. We just have to deal with it, Anna. They're my parents. They're old and set in their ways, he shot back. And he had no response to that. But at what cost, Michael? Our happiness? Our marriage? He didn't ever. That night, I felt abandoned and unsupported when I went to bed. Our relationship was being overshadowed by Michael's apparent dedication to his parents, and I began to question whether I was putting up a futile struggle. Let me now tell you about the beginning of the transformation in Michael, the previously charming man I married. It was like witnessing the wilting of a flower, although not as attractive. I was hungry and exhausted when I arrived home from work one evening. I texted Michael earlier to let him know I would be running late, but what I saw when I stepped in made my blood boil. The house was a mess, and there was Michael, feet propped up on the coffee table, watching TV. You get the idea, dirty dishes in the sink, takeout cartons on the counter. I was shocked and said, Michael, I thought you were going to clean up today, trying not to show my irritation. He barely glanced at me. I was busy, had a tough day. You can clean up, right? After watching TV for the entire day, Michael rose up and asked, his face flushing. Busy doing what? You've been home all day. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You think you're the only one who gets tired? I work hard too, you know. But you promised to take care of the house today, and I've been working non-stop, he grumbled. I was so furious I could not talk. Oh, please. Your job is a breeze compared to mine. Just clean up and stop complaining. The man I married was not this one. My spouse would have been understanding and supportive. Weeks passed, and Michael's attitude did not improve. On Fridays, he began going out with his friends, arriving home late and inebriated, and he assumed I would handle everything. He smelled of alcohol and staggered in one Friday night about 2 a.m. I asked, "Where have you been?" At my wit's end, Michael hissed at me, "Do you have any idea what time it is?" "Out having fun, something you wouldn't understand." "Fun? Well, I'm here worrying about you." "This isn't what I signed up for," I stated to Michael. He merely chuckled. It was at that moment that I saw Michael was not the man I had fallen in love with. "What do you want, me to stay home and be bored like you?" "No thanks." He had changed, becoming someone else entirely who didn't give a damn about my feelings or our relationship. I tried to talk to him one night following another fight about his late nights. I shook my head and added, "Michael, we need to talk about us, about our marriage." "What's there to talk about?" "If you're unhappy, that's your problem," he said without even looking at me. That statement hit me like a ton of bricks. What's wrong with me? This was our marriage, wasn't it? I remarked, fighting back tears. I thought we were a team. Michael gave a shrug. I felt even more alone when I went to bed that night, but I told myself, things change, Anna. Maybe you should too. It was evident that Michael had undergone a total change in who he was, not just a phase. I questioned whether he still possessed any traits from the man I married. Every problematic story, so the saying goes, has a turning point. And for me, on a cool Wednesday night, that moment arrived without warning. I recall the tension in the air as I entered the house. With an expression that was impossible to decipher, Michael sat at the kitchen table. Without wasting any time, he said, "We need to talk, Anna." My heart was racing. Taking a deep breath, Michael said, "Okay, what's up?" His words, "I think it's time we face the truth. Our marriage, it's not working. We should get a divorce," truly touched home for me. I knew things were bad, but divorce? That's a big step. Are you sure? I mean, is this really what you want? I inquired. He set his face and nodded. Michael's parents, Evelyn and George, entered before I could understand that yes, that's what I want. It's for the best. Their expressions were jubilant, as if they'd just won the jackpot. With a tone full of fake sympathy, Evelyn remarked, "Anna, we heard the news. We're so relieved you and Michael are being sensible about this." George said in a smug tone, "Yes, it's for the best. And don't forget the marriage contract you signed. You won't be getting a cent of our son's estate." I was unable to speak. They were not only relieved that I was divorcing them, but they also had the gall to bring up the prenup that they had nearly had me sign prior to the wedding. I looked across at Michael. "So, is this it then?" I said, scarcely raising my voice above a whisper. When he did glance at me, Michael said, "Yes, Anna, this is it." A deep, throbbing melancholy mingled with a peculiar sense of relief. It was finished. His parents were overjoyed that the marriage for which I had fought so hard was ending. Amidst the chaos of the divorce, an unbelievable event occurred. I was the lottery winner. You did really hear correctly. Anna, the scratch-off winner who had never won more than $1, won $7 million. It was a Tuesday at the time. While purchasing a coffee at the gas station, I decided to purchase a lottery ticket on impulse. It wasn't until I verified the numbers at home that I gave it any thought. I recall trembling my hands as I stared at the ticket, unable to believe what I was seeing. I kept it a secret from everyone, even Michael. It felt like a poor idea, what with the divorce and all. Nevertheless, Michael learned of it. One evening, he barged into the house brandishing a copy of the lottery notification bearing my name. His eyes wide in surprise, he screamed, "Is this true? Did you win the lottery?" I took the winning ticket in my hand and nodded. Michael's attitude went from shock to avarice when he said, "Yes, I won. We're still married, Anna." "That means I'm entitled to half of that money," he replied. I made the sound of bitter, humorless laughter. He moved a step closer and raised his voice, entitled, "Really, Michael? After everything, you think you're entitled to my winnings?" I shook my head, shocked at his boldness. "Yes, I do. It's only fair. You wouldn't even have bought that ticket if we weren't married." Michael's cheeks flushed, his rage obvious. "Fair? You want to talk about fair? Now remember the prenup, the one your parents were so happy about? It says we have no claim to each other's property." He emphasized, "This is different. That's different." I refused to back down and held the ticket firmly. He appeared ready to blow up, saying, "No, it's not. I won this money, Michael. It's mine, and I'm not giving you a cent." I felt a wave of strength and power that I hadn't felt in a long time. "You can't do this to me, Anna. It's my right." I smiled as I placed the lottery ticket in my safe and said, "You're right, Michael. No, it's not. This is where I draw the line. I'm keeping the money, all of it." With a smash of the door, he stormed from the house. With the winning ticket in hand, I stood there feeling as though I had won something more than money. I'd gained the opportunity to start again, to be free of Michael and his controlling, avaricious parents. So something completely ridiculous happened following all of the stress and drama involving Michael and his parents. After returning from a business trip, I discovered that my safe, the same one in which I had kept the phony lottery ticket, was missing. When I entered my home, I noticed that the safe had been removed. Laughing instead of panicking or getting angry. I couldn't help myself, the whole thing was so ludicrous and over the top. I suspected Michael and his parents were responsible for this amateurish theft. I decided not to give them a call. Rather, I continued laughing to myself while I got to work cleaning up. It was impossible not to laugh at the picture of Michael, Evelyn, and George attempting to remove that hefty metal safe from my home. The icing on the cake was the notion that they would attempt to open it without the keys. I could only picture how frustrated they were to finally crack it open and discover a useless piece of paper instead of the actual lottery ticket as I swept up the debris. Their avaricious hands were far from the real ticket, which was securely stored in a bank deposit box. The situation's ridiculousness was almost too much. They had even gone so far as to break into my home and take a huge safe, all for no reason at all. I couldn't determine if it was funny or tragic. Still giggling, I flopped down on the couch in the mess that used to be my living room. They were gravely mistaken if they believed that their amateurish scheme would allow them to outwit me. That night, instead of feeling scared or anxious, I smiled as I went to sleep, picturing their expressions the moment they realized their grand theft had been in vain. Though it was a minor triumph, it seemed monumental in the greater scheme of things. Thus, things took a direction I never would have predicted after realizing my safe was missing and that there was a false ticket inside. Michael called, and I could tell by the tone of his voice that something wasn't right. He uttered a desperate, "Anna, you have to help us, I couldn't figure it out." "Help you? What happened?" "We're at the police station. They arrested us," he said. I grinned. He nearly yelled into the phone, "Arrested? For what?" "For trying to cash in the lottery ticket." "But it's a fake, Anna. It's a fake." I couldn't contain my laughter. There was stillness on the other end before Michael added, "You need to come here and tell them it's a misunderstanding." "Of course it's a fake, Michael. Did you really think I'd leave the real ticket in the safe after everything?" I exhaled. I spotted Michael, Evelyn, and George seated in a holding area at the police station. "Fine, I'll be there soon." When I got closer, they appeared to be absolutely confused. I turned to face them, feeling an odd mixture of triumph and sympathy, as Evelyn yelled out, "Anna, tell them we didn't steal anything. We thought the ticket was real. You broke into my house and stole my safe, and now you're surprised you got caught?" Michael threw himself in. "But the ticket was fake. You have to tell them it was a misunderstanding." I thought for a moment. I turned to the policeman and said, "No, Michael, it wasn't a misunderstanding. You stole my safe, and now you're facing the consequences." The neighboring policeman nodded and said, "The ticket in the safe was a copy. I made it to put in a frame. The real ticket is in a safety deposit box. We need your statement, ma'am, to confirm the theft." I felt a feeling of finality when I made my statement, explaining how they had used the fictitious ticket to steal the safe. It marked the close of a deceptive and manipulative era in my life. I couldn't help but feel a little lighter as I left the station. After revealing their true selves, Michael and his parents found themselves in difficulty. It was a fitting conclusion to their dishonesty and greed. Despite all that had transpired, I was about to start a new chapter in my life. I'd closed a difficult chapter with the divorce, but there was still more. Theft charges have been brought against Michael's parents. Considering all of their trickery and avarice, I can't help but see the irony of their predicament. As I signed the final divorce documents in my attorney's office, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and anticipation. I took a big breath, feeling the weight of my words. "Mr. Thompson, you're officially divorced now. And with the charges against your ex-husband and his parents, they might be looking at real jail time. How do you feel?" "Honestly, Mr. Thompson, I feel like I can finally breathe. It's been a long road, but I'm ready to move on." He gave an understanding grin. "Just remember, you have a new life ahead of you, a life with endless possibilities and a substantial lottery win to help you along the way." With a smile of my own, I felt empowered. As I left the office, I felt lighter, as if a weight had been taken off my shoulders. "Oh, I have plans, Mr. Thompson. Travel, new experiences, and maybe a bit of adventure. It's time I live life for myself." I called my closest buddy Lisa as I was strolling. With a tiny smile on my lips, I continued, "Lisa, it's official. I'm divorced, and Michael and his parents, they're facing the consequences of their actions." Lisa's voice was one of encouragement. I was full of hope as I looked down the busy street and said, "Anna, I'm so proud of you. You've come out of this stronger than ever. So what's next for you?" "I'm going to travel, see the world. I want to experience everything I've missed out on." Lisa remarked in a light-hearted but genuine tone, "That's amazing, Anna. You deserve every bit of happiness and adventure. And if fake jail time? Well, that's just poetic justice." We talked and made plans for a while. And I was honestly thrilled about the future for the first time in a long time. I paused to think about everything that had transpired, the lies, the betrayal, and the pain, as I was hanging up the phone. I had moved on from it all. New beginnings, adventures, and the opportunity to find my identity awaited me on the route ahead. With a bounce in my step, I set off, prepared to face whatever was ahead. This was not merely the end, rather, it was the beginning of something lovely and new. I also realized as I was leaving that this was just the start of my novel, one in which I was the author and everything was conceivable.